Welcome. This is a bit about the background of Reiki, but presented for you just in the manner of a bedtime story. So, if you like, just to be comfortable and settle down. If you like your headphones, then maybe put your headphones on and put your feet up, and you can just relax. And if you fall asleep, it doesn't matter, because a lot of information can sometimes be misleading, can occupy the mind on thinking Reiki is something that has to be done, whereas really Reiki is an undoing of the mind, a not thinking and a not learning. So there isn't a lot of point in giving lots of information, but at the same time there's a feeling that understanding where it's coming from can dispel any fear or negative impressions that you might have come across about Reiki. So if you're sitting comfortably, and I'll begin. So the person who founded the Reiki that we traditionally think of as Reiki today, his name was Usui Mikao, and he was born in Japan in 1865 in a little village called Tanyai, and it's said that his family were the shogun's personal guard, that they were, I shall have a look in my book, that Hatamoto samurai. The samurai were these were the guards of the shogun, and they were quite high up on the social ladder. It may not be true, but it is known that until 1870, the normal sort of what they call common people, they didn't have surnames up till that date in Japan, and Usui Mikao's family did have a surname, and they do seem to have had money to give Usui a good education. So it may well be true that Usui came from the samurai class, and at this time in Japan there was the Meiji Restoration, which was the old ways of Japan were being torn down, and Japan was in a rush to modernize and enter modern Western society. And for 200 years up to that time, Japan had been isolated, and the culture in Japan for Usui's class strata that he was born into was very refined and exquisite arts and music and poetry, and the martial arts were all highly valued, and also religion, the native Shinto religion and Buddhism and Taoism were sort of the backbone of society. So Yusui was born at the time where, when he was a small child, the old ways would have been still in dominance, and he went to a monastery for his early education, and he learnt Kiko, which is a sort of a bit like the Chinese Qigong, and he learnt palm healing, which was a very ancient tradition, been around for thousands of years in China, and then came to Japan and was practiced in the monastery. And he learned how to develop this key energy at this early age. So he will have absorbed that. That would have been his basic grounding in his life. And when he was 12, he started another martial art, and he learned weaponry and grappling, and he got all the way to the highest levels in this. So martial arts was a very good discipline for cultivating inner stillness and concentration, and there was a lot of overlap between the martial arts and the Buddhist monks. There were Yamabushi, or warrior monks, the ninjas, the ninja monks, and this is the tradition that captured Yusui's heart. So when he was a young man, he travelled all extensively in Japan and then in China, wanting to find out as much as he could about, it seems like he wanted to know as much as he could about truth. So it was religion and medicine and psychic abilities and really anything all around the subject of truth that interested him. So he went to China seeking out the Buddhist origins, and he also came to the West and travelled extensively in Europe, and he was very interested in Christianity. So all these things were in the melting pot of his passions in life. And then he started out as a businessman. He became a personal secretary to a high-powered politician who became mayor of Tokyo. And he got married and he had 2 children. But you can see that the passion for truth was calling him, because at one point he left the business world and trained for apparently 15 or 18 years, I think it is, that it takes to train as a Tendai Buddhist monk. And Yusui trained as a Tendai Buddhist monk, and normally they go and live in the temple. But because Yusui was married, he had a special dispensation to practice as a lay priest and stay and live with his family. So he was supporting people in the community. He wasn't shut away from people. He really cared for people, and in the society there was where the authorities, in setting up a new Western society and modernizing and industrializing, they had put restrictions on people following their faith, and everything had to adopt, if every religious group had to adopt the politically supported Shinto religion, and a lot of the old spiritual practices went underground. So in addition to being a Buddhist monk, Yusui used to go off into the mountains, and there's a mountain monk tradition in Japan that had been running since the year 666, so a long time, called Shugendo, where the monks would live out on the mountainside, and there'd be freezing cold winters and big forests, and it'd be a real communion with nature, and there were a lot of practices like standing under freezing cold waterfalls and living an aesthetic lifestyle outdoors in nature, and very spiritual. And this was outlawed by the Meiji Restoration. So not only did he practice this, but practice it in secret. So these things were the passions, the guiding forces for Yusui. And one time Yusui was on the mountainside, and he'd been fasting and praying and standing under the waterfall, and he felt this great white light enter the crown of his head, and he felt an expansion in his awareness, and he became enlightened. He knew that this is truth, that this awareness, attention, beingness is the truth of what we are, of what we all, each and every one of us, we are this. He understood this. And from that time, many people started coming to him asking for healing and help, and many monks and nuns came to him because he knew all the Shugendo teachings, and he knew all the Buddhist teachings, all the ancient teachings. He was very wise, and he was also doing the palm healing, and he discovered that whereas as a child and in his earlier life, when he'd done palm healing, he was channeling his energy in the palm healing. But after this enlightenment experience, it was clear that it wasn't his energy that was coming in the palm healing. It was coming from this higher power, this higher awareness that had come for him. And it was not long after this that he and his wife and children, they moved to just outside Tokyo, and there was a great earthquake at this time in the Tokyo area of Japan, and 140,000 people died, and many houses and a lot of the city was in ruins. There was a great fire, and so many people were wounded and homeless and traumatized. And Yusui and the other people from his little school, they went out every day helping and healing people. And this went on for years, and it had such an impact on the community that the Japanese government awarded Yusui an award for service to the community, which just shows the outstanding nature of how people were really helped by Reiki. And he initiated over 2,000 people into Reiki around this time. And even the Navy came to him and asked him to teach the naval officers palm healing to use on the naval ships. So this was the time that the Reiki tools were put together, quite late on in Yusui's life, really, because he was teaching naval officers and community members who didn't have any spiritual background, and they couldn't feel the energies. So the tools were made to help people who can't feel the energy, to help them find their way to sense the energies, so that you could say beginners, like they will, so that they can experience the things that Yusui is trying to explain to them. So one lady, a Buddhist nun, who was a relative of Yusui's wife, actually, and She was taught by him for about 5 years, and she said that the teachings of Yusui were about life. She said that what most people living that they think is life is just existing. It's just getting through each day. And she said that living, really living, is what she learned from Yusui's teachings. And this is very revealing, because it's clear that the enlightenment understanding, this is real life. This is really living, is being in this place and experiencing your life rather than living through the mind. So, so that's why it's clear that the tools, the Reiki tools, are meant for as an aid to bring each person using them to the experience of this energy that is the energy of enlightenment. And so far in this Reiki course, you've experienced the first two tools, the Chokurei and Seihei. And these are like the foundation tools to begin with. Firstly, you need to experience the energy, and also to have the power to leave the mind and experience no mind energy. So these are the first two tools. The second two tools are transcendental tools. They are really raising the awareness to the height. So all four work together in harmony. But the reason for the existence of Reiki is the truth, because all healing is here in this truth that each and every person is the essence of everybody. And Yusui particularly wanted to bring all the hundreds of years of Buddhist and mountain communion with nature, understanding and awareness into the availability and experience of every person. And after the aftermath of the volcano had started to quieten down, Yusui was invited by groups all over Japan to come and talk about Reiki. And he was in great demand and always travelling everywhere. And he was only 62 when he suffered a stroke and he died. So, and after that, as often happens when the leading light, the founder, has died, then the history of Reiki's, I feel it's not so important there, because it's the fire, the inspiration from the passion of Yusui for truth that is the thing, that is the essence of what is the gift to the world. Because in so many places you can be told about truth and you can understand it intellectually, but it not be your experience. And the wonderful thing about Reiki is this is the missing link. This is the experience of truth. So that is your bedtime story. Thank you very much for listening. Namaste.